Jenson Button, this is your racing career.
Excellent.
Well, your professional racing career. What I would love is if you can flick us through the book and just talk us through, firstly, your immediate reaction to the photos, and then I'll ask you some questions about them.
Okay, well, this is exciting. Wow, this is very exciting. Old school, look at that. Good times. This was 89, I think, 1989. So this is my second year in karting. The first year was 1988 when my dad bought me a go-kart, and it was all just things for us to do on the weekend and have fun as father and son. But it got a bit more serious very quickly. And I ended up racing in the British Championship and racing against these two amazing drivers. One sadly isn't with us anymore. Dan Weldon, who's got the big number 1 on his car. He was always the guy to beat. And our Anthony Davidson leading our very own Anthony Davidson leading the way, number 6, and I was the one with the black helmet with the sort of yellow horns on the top, which is what my dad designed to scare the other kids, which I thought was a great idea. Funnily enough, my helmet here for this weekend is exactly like that. So I've copied my first helmet design to see if it scares the other drivers out of the way. Who knows? It might work.
Genius.
Exactly.
Actually, before you move on from that, at what point in your career did it become go-karting was for fun, or when did you realise, actually, this could be my job, this could be my life?
I think probably when I was a teenager. You know, when I started racing in Europe at 14, that's when it got a bit more serious. You know, I was racing against the best kids in the world, mostly in Italy, but there were races all around Europe, and then we started racing in Japan, in America, and fighting for the European Championship in junior, and then winning it in Formula Super A, which was like the F1, I guess, or the WEC of its category. It was the peak. You're racing against professional racing drivers in go-karts. So that for me was one of the highlights of my career and one of the most memorable moments winning that championship.
And if you turn the page, I think we'll see it all kind of did eventually go to plan.
Yes, that was a few years later.
Just a few.
Exactly. Actually, it wasn't that many. It was 17 I won the European champs in Super A, and this was 2009, so it was 12 years later. So it's not that much time, I guess. But yeah, I was already in F1 when I was 20 years old, so this was 9 years into my F1 career. Yeah, the dream, I think, for every racing driver, definitely in single seaters, is the chance to fight for a world championship, and then obviously to clinch that world championship, and to do it in the way that we did at Brawn as well, as a private team racing against the big manufacturers, was pretty special.
You've told the story several times now in some incredible documentaries, but we really want to take the chance to talk more about what that actually also then did for the rest of your career. How much, or did it take off the pressure that you did the thing, you won the World Championship? Did that mean that you could then be kind of freed up to race in the way that interested you for the rest of your career?
It definitely takes some pressure off, because when you're fighting for a World Championship, there's so much pressure that builds, that comes from within, because you never know if this is going to happen again. You know, is this going to be a possibility in the future? The way Formula One is, it's, you know, you need to be with a competitive team, and you know, there's probably 2 or 3 teams that can fight for a world championship every year, and if you don't find yourself in those cars, it might not happen. So you build a lot of pressure and put that on yourself through that championship year that you have the opportunity. So yes, a lot of pressure, and following that, I was like, what do I do? You know, what's the future hold for me after winning a world championship? So that was when I decided to go to McLaren and racing alongside Lewis, because that for me was the next challenge. You know, racing with a driver who I regard as one of the best in the world, and also racing for a team that had so much history in the sport, and I grew up watching McLaren win world championships.
And when your Formula One career came to an end, you kind of went from being a Formula One driver to a racing driver. And many drivers end their career in Formula One and call it a quit, but why did you then want to continue racing?
Well, I raced for 17 years in F1, so it's a long time. And even though it's the best job in the world, you know, it kind of still gets boring. You know, you want to look for new things and new challenges. And for me, I always thought of myself as a racing driver, not just an F1 driver. And I wanted to leave F1 young enough that I could go and race in other categories and still be competitive. So that's why I did it, and it opened up a lot of opportunities for me in racing. For me, the first one was obviously moving to Japan for a couple of years and racing in Super GT, which is a category I always loved while I was racing in F1. So to have the chance to fight for a championship there and win it in our first season with Naoki Yamamoto-san was pretty mega, coming off the back of an F1 career. So.
And actually.
Oh, and it takes us straight into that. This is 2018, so a really special year, and it's funny because winning an F1 World Championship is what we all dream of. But the emotion of winning this was up there with it, because when you've done a great job and you feel that you've won that championship on merit, it really means a lot. It doesn't matter what you're racing in. So this kind of felt just as much as winning an F1 World Championship, weirdly, and I think a lot of it is because I loved driving these cars. I loved the team atmosphere. Naoki-san was an epic driver and still is, still racing in Super GT. And to race for a team that had so much history in the sport as well. I used to watch Super GT on TV, and I always loved the Raybrigg sponsored car, Honda, of Kunimoto-san. And he was a lovely man as well. So to win the championship for him for his first time was pretty special.
And in that same year, if you turn the page, you then went on to race with, SMP, but you made your Le Mans debut.
I did, and this was quite a late call-up, really, because I wanted to jump in something for Le Mans to get some experience to hopefully race for the manufacturer in the future. And then SMP came calling and said, we have a seat available, and you'll get to do a test. So I did one test in Manicourt, and then thrown into Le Mans, a track I'd never driven. So it was definitely eye-opening, driving Le Mans for the first time, and the Le Sarthe circuit is unlike any other. And to drive in a car I didn't really know that well. These cars were extremely quick, LMP1 cars, and we couldn't take the fight to Toyota as a manufacturer, but still, the high speed with these things was extreme. It was like an F1 car. But in a slightly different way. So no, I enjoyed this challenge. It was good fun. Obviously, the results didn't really happen with the team. We got a podium in Shanghai, which is really cool. And I remember Fuji, we were very competitive. And I remember I did a double stint, and I sat behind a Toyota the whole time through that double stint. And I just thought, this is cool, and was hoping for a lot more in the future. But then all sorts of different things happened.
Well, your next time at Le Mans looked a little different.
It did. This was 2023, and I had spent a couple of years out of racing, full-time racing, COVID times, and our kids were born, so I wanted to spend as much time at home as possible. But I was doing one-off races here and there. This was such a cool challenge, because a lot of my friends in racing were like, well, I hope you're getting paid a lot, because what's the point? And well, the whole point is that we're doing something that no one else is, taking a car that you would never expect to have at Le Mans and trying to make it competitive. Yes, we don't have a rule book. Well, we did in certain ways in terms of the size and the wings we could put on the car, but we could really try new things and get the car competitive. And all the way to Le Mans, we thought, we still don't really know where we are. We're probably a couple of seconds off of a GTE, got to Le Mans, and in qualifying, we went 2.5, 3 seconds quicker. So it was so much fun to drive. And the high-speed sections were actually quite nice to drive. It was more the slow-speed corners that were tricky compared to the GT cars. But yeah, if we were without reliability, we would have finished in front of all the GT cars. And it's kind of impressive for such a big old tank.
And then the year after?
Yes, this was 2024. I can tell because I've started wearing glasses. Yeah.
No, what was it that made you decide now's the time to join Jota, to commit to a full season of work?
Well, I talked to the team all through 2023, and when I was at Le Mans, in the Garage 56 car, we talked about the possibility. And I was like, you know what, I'm 44, I still feel young, I'm fit. Let's see if I can do a couple of years and really give it my all. And the reason was, when you're jumping in cars here and there, you're never really getting the best out yourself. You need time to adapt because everything's different. And also in your 40s, everything takes a bit longer. When you're in your 20s, you learn things a lot faster. So it does take a bit more time. So to race for a team that was a privateer was also really cool for me. I really liked the privateer feel. It felt fun, serious, but a lot of fun as well. and you know that this team are here to go racing. They're, you know, it's manufacturers come and go, whereas teams like Jota are just in it for the long haul. And loved every minute of it. You know, it wasn't an easy car to get used to, the 963, and with the amount of systems, you know, I'd never experienced anything like that. You know, we could adjust the car corner to corner, and it took me a long time to really get to understand what was at my disposal to use in the car. And also the way you had to drive the car was like a GT car. You know, you had to be aggressive, you had to throw the thing around, and that just wasn't my style. So it took me a minute to adapt, but I enjoyed the process, and it's kind of post-Le Mans was really my strong point in the car.
If you want to flip the page, we obviously saw you move to the Cadillac this year, now a factory driver with the team, and 2 new teammates that you seem to have settled in really well with.
Yeah, it's obviously been a big shift for everyone at Jota, moving to being a factory team, but also working with another hypercar. You know, they kind of do similar lap times, but they all work in very different ways, and the way that the systems are, and it's a lot to learn. And I have to say, I'm really impressed the way the whole team has really got to grips with this car, and how amazing this season's been in terms of performances. Yeah, there's been some moments where we should have scored more points, and we've had incidents and what have you, but it's all part of the learning process. And you know, to get a 1-2 in Brazil, and to have multiple front rows in qualifying, especially at Le Mans, it's really impressive. And the whole team have really stepped up, and it's really been great to see, because you know, I feel like this is a home for me. To see them progress and do so well is really impressive. And for, you know, working alongside my guys in the 38, Earl and Seb, who have so much experience of racing in the Cadillac, but also experience of endurance racing, I've learned a lot from these guys. And you wouldn't think that the oldest guy, well, actually I'm not the oldest, Seb is, but one of the oldest guys learns more from the other guys, but it's just the way. It's very different racing than F1, you know, endurance, and how aggressive you are in traffic, and again, all the systems that go with this car, and how to get the best out of it. So I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great year, and I've would say this car suits my style a lot more than the 963 did last year. So I've enjoyed this season immensely.
Flip us over for one last photo. We can see quite how much this podium meant to you in Interlagos. What was it that got this reaction out of you, this joy?
Well, it's funny because obviously you want to win. You know, that's the dream, and we didn't. We finished second, but the sister car won, and you know, at this point in my career, it's just nice seeing this team win. If you're not in the car, you're not in the car, and that's the thing. You know, I am definitely a big team player in terms of wanting Cadillac host Team Jota to be competitive. And even when I'm not with the team next year, I'm going to be cheering for them. So to get this podium, to get a 1-2 for the whole team, but also, you know, I felt that I did a good job in the race, and that's another part of it as well, right? That you want to do a good job for yourself, but also you don't want to let the team down. So, you know, when you know you've done the best you possibly can, even though you don't win, you're happy about it.
My question to you now is somewhere between how do you feel coming into this weekend, the final one, and almost do you feel like you're already looking ahead to what's next, or are you ready to sit and take a moment and finally chill?
So this will be my last professional race. I'll still race things in the future, but it'll be more, you know, I love my historic racing. You know, I have a few cars that I race for fun, and that's what it's going to be. You know, I can't see me doing any, you know, big races in anything next year or the rest of my career. You know, you got to give so much time and energy to being competitive in a championship like WEC. And these cars, as I said, are very complex. So the meetings about all the you know, the electronics and what have you in the systems, it goes on and on and on. And I think if I was younger and I had more time in my career, I'd be excited by that. But now I just want to drive a racing car. I want to go and drive a race car and have fun. So when I get in the car, those 2 hours I have in the car are the best 2 hours that month. Do you know what I mean? I absolutely love racing cars still, but it's everything else that goes with it. And I don't have the time to give to it that the team really needs me to give. And also if I'm not able to give 100%, I don't want to do it either. You know, for me, next year will be family time, which I can't wait for, and jumping in cars here and there for fun, which is what it's all about. For me, racing cars should be about fun, and that's exactly what it's going to be in 2026.
Well, one last thing I need you to do. Can you pull that photo out of the, not to get all metaphorical, but I wondered if you would sign off on your career.
Look at that. The flies are a nightmare, aren't they?
You're getting attacked.
Oh my God.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.